always wanted to be a pleaser and strove for perfection, which is not a healthy thing to try to do.
The journey to self-acceptance. Are there any tidbits, any keys that you feel like unlocked that for you?
Things had to get worse before they got better. You can't skirt going through the pain. You can't go around dealing with the unpleasantness. You just have to stop fighting. I don't want to retire. I just hope I can do this forever.
How has your definition changed, like your priority changed between happiness and success over time?
I need joy. I need peace. I need happiness. I need to be content with what I have instead of always striving for more.
Welcome back to 101 Ways Out. I'm your host, Vanessa Jupi, and today I have a special interview for you. You're going to meet Mary Sinclair Kowalski. I have known Mary since I was a very little girl because she was my cousin's BFF. And she's always been a super fun, loving, smart, and kind human being. And I never knew quite how smart until very recently, like Mensa smart. But Mary had a less than desirable relationship early in her life. The beautiful thing about it is it gave her her wonderful son, who she cherishes so much, which you will hear very clearly in this interview. The husband was abusive, and she ended up leaving, which is so amazing. And her life really took off after that. And I don't mean that as a pun, but it kind of is, because Mary went from being a stay-at-home mom who homeschooled her kid and really gave him this rich, robust foundation to putting herself as a single mom at this time, after she got out of the abusive relationship, through school to become a therapist so she could help other people, and then becoming a flight attendant. You will hear it come through loud and clear. It's not a conventional path, but she is so happy. She has traveled the world with the new husband, the love of her life, and she is living the dream. She has a beautiful outlook on life, so much wisdom to share, and I think just like the best mindset. I loved this conversation, and if I could talk to Mary like once a month, I think my life would be better for it. I hope you enjoy it and get as much out of it as I did. Stick around to the end because Mary's going to give you an update on how things are going now, and I'll see you next week. Be inspired, and until then, go rewrite the rules. Without further ado, I'm going to jump right in because I want to capture as much of this goodness as I possibly can. So thank you for joining me on 101 Ways Out. I am speaking with Mary Sinclair Kowalski today. And truth be told, she is a family friend that I've known for my entire life, just about, almost. She is best friends with my dear, loved cousin, David, who has inspired me a lot in my life. And I've just seen their relationship over the years. It's been so beautiful. And Mary now is a flight attendant with American Airlines. And she's had just a really interesting background, interesting career. And she decided that she wanted to do something different and she wanted to travel the world and enjoy herself. So she broke from the traditional expected path and she's done that. And so I'm excited to get into it today and learn more about what made Mary make that decision and a lot more about her background. So Mary, why don't you start out by sharing with us where you are on your life journey at this moment in time?
You know, there are some things about getting old that are not great, but there are some things about getting older that are just so awesome. I, right now, am so happy with myself and accepting. And even something as not important as straight hair versus curly, spent years battling it. And then went, you know what? Some people with curly hair would love my straight hair, so I'm just going to embrace and make the most of it. So I am at peace with who I am. I have found the love of my life. We just had our 10th anniversary in February. My job is rewarding and fun, and I don't make a ton of money, but that's okay. And my son is now 24, graduated from UT Austin a couple years ago, and is finding his way in, just starting it. So I feel like I don't know what other changes and surprises are ahead. You know, I've still got a few decades ahead of me, and I'm just trying to take life as it comes.
The journey to self-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
What are there any tidbits, any keys that you feel like unlocked that for you?
There was a moment of realization. It actually stemmed from a physical injury. I made the unwise decision to break up a dogfight. And there was an injury to my fingertip, which, as you can imagine, super painful. You have so many receptors there. And during that, like, things had to get worse before they got better. And I realized, you know, for growth to happen, for healing to happen, for improvement to happen, you can't skirt going through the pain. You can't go around dealing with the unpleasantness. You just have to stop fighting or trying to ameliorate with whatever. go through it and then heal. And so that kind of, I don't want to say resignation, acceptance of life on life's terms just made everything easier. So yeah, I always want to improve, but I no longer feel that drive when I was younger of like needing to be perfect and always striving to do more and be better. It's like, I want to be the best I can, and that is good enough, which is huge relief, weight off my shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it. I love hearing that. Let's go back. You were about to share that in your life, you always knew that you wanted to be a therapist.
Yes, that was my dream, to be a counselor. And I was a smart kid. When I was little, they didn't know what ADHD was. And so there was always this like, you're a good student and eager to please, and why can't you get yourself together? And little Mary was saying, I don't know either. Can someone tell me? And so, I struggled, but I always achieved. And I made that dream happen in terms of putting myself through my bachelor's in psychology and my, what I refer to as starter marriage. My hubby was not so supportive. And I think in retrospect, he did not want me to be more educated than he was. And so the moving on to the master's degree plan kind of didn't happen. So breaking free from that, the first thing I did was put myself back in school. And after 5 grueling years of, awesome learning and growth and stuff, I needed to get a job. I had a 11-year-old son that I needed to support, and I needed health care. And so you referenced my bestie and your cousin. He'd happened to post on Facebook, hey, all my non-flying friends who want to become flying friends, we're hiring again. He had always wanted me to be a flight attendant with him, but I had gone to college for psychology, and then I became a special ed teacher, and then I went back to, originally I was going to get a master's in more educational stuff, and then I got pregnant and had a wonderful genius baby who taught himself to read before kindergarten, so I became a homeschooling mom. So life happens, you go with it. But when I found myself free to make changes, went to school, got that degree, David happened to mention that, and I thought, yeah, let me just send in a little thing, and they were the first people to offer me a job. So I said, yeah, I can do both. And now I cannot imagine any kind of cubicle, 9 to 5, same people, same place every day. I love the changing scenery and never knowing what's going to happen next. And it suits me so well. I just hope I can do this forever. Crazy, huh?
Let's go back in time to when you were a little kid. Share a little bit about what your upbringing was like, where you went to school, what your parents did, and that sort of thing.
Okay, so my dad was military, very strict, very critical. My mom was a super hippie. Unsurprisingly, they divorced early. So I had a fairly chaotic upbringing of back and forth and moving and different expectations. But I did have the privilege of spending some formative years, roughly age 12 through 16, living outside of the US, which I feel just opened my mind and perspective in so many ways. And just living it on a military base, especially in another country, is an amazing experience of people of all different backgrounds and incomes and faiths and ethnicities all just live together, and the parents work together, and you all go to school together. So I'm sure there was bigotry, racism stuff, but I was not aware of it. I lived in a bubble of tropical Panama bliss with, kind of an ideal, fun childhood. There wasn't even the normal teenage girl thing in the US of pressure of there was no sense doing your hair. It was going to storm every day. Nobody put on makeup. We just had fun outside. And then I moved to Texas in the 80s, and it was big hair and makeup. And I said, Mom, these girls are wearing hose and heels to school. I don't fit in. And you roll with it, you change. But it was hard to adjust to these different expectations of my different parenting situations. And like I said, I always wanted to be a pleaser and, strove for perfection, which is not a healthy thing to try to do. But I loved school, I loved learning, and I wanted to do something meaningful with my life. So when I was a special ed teacher working with kids who had what they called then emotional disturbance and behavioral disorders. It was draining. It was difficult,
Mm.
but if I managed to make a difference and get through, so rewarding. And I don't know how
Wow.
long I could have lasted with that because people don't usually stay in that position for very long. But getting pregnant and having my baby, as you are well aware, just becomes the center of your being. And I
Yeah.
loved dedicating myself to this amazing human and helping him have the best possible life. And biased, of course, but if I do say so myself, he has grown to be an incredible man, and I cannot wait to see what he does with his talents and his sweet disposition. But yeah, growing up, I felt definitely a lot of pressure to perform and succeed and
Wow.
internalized all that. And so when I got the job, what I do currently, being a flight attendant, people said to me, "Oh, isn't it sad that you're wasting your education?" Which, first of all, rude. Secondly, I said, how is any learning ever wasted? Third, I believe my background led me to be able to get this job, which is where I believe I'm meant to be. And fourth, jealous. We have conversations with people, my hubby and I, they'll tell us, you travel too much. You should be doing something else. And skipping over the whole part of like, where does anyone presume to tell someone else how to live their life? I thought, we have, I don't know, maybe 20 years until we don't feel like traveling anymore. So I'm going to travel every bit I possibly can until then. And if anybody doesn't like it, enjoy, because
I
it's my
love
life.
that.
So if they
Yes, I
think
love
I'm
that, Mary.
wasting education, I don't care because I'm living the life. And the only thing that I question is I always do want to make the world a better place. And I feel like as a teacher, I know I was doing that. As a counselor, I knew I was doing that. But it also drained me because you need to care so much, but not too much. And working with children as
Yeah.
I did, I mean, it was taking a toll on my heart. I brought it home with me. It was, if you love children, you hate to see them sad, depressed, anxious, abused, suicidal, self-harming, that brings you down sometimes.
Yeah.
I couldn't detach from it quite enough. And it's not that I don't care about my passengers on the plane, because I do. I will do everything to keep them safe and make them happy and help. But when I go home, yabba dabba do, I forget all about it. I don't carry stuff home in my heart like I used to. And when that voice tells me you should be doing more, I tell that voice, I did some stuff and I'm taking some time for me now. And self-care is just as valid as caring about anyone else in the world. And that kind of brings it around to my main guiding philosophy of life. I have no regrets. And it's not because I've never made foolish decisions. It's not because I don't have remorse for things that, could have had bad effects on somebody else. I choose to regret nothing because I do believe it all happens for a reason. Even an unhappy
Yeah.
marriage got me this amazing kid that I adore. So I can't ever regret any decision or situation because you're there for a reason and you make the best of it and you move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just ask you one more question about your childhood, and it's kind of like two things wrapped up into one. Were there specific expectations you felt that your parents had for you, or anything that really stood out as a core memory when you were a kid?
Absolutely. So my dad, I went to a school, a small town, South Central Texas, where to be an A, you had to have a grade of, I think it was like 96 to 100. An A minus was 93 to
Wow.
95. And so like by the time you got down to 87, you're already almost at a D. And of course I was always making, A's, but I remember my dad saying to me, why A minus? And I thought, what? I'm in fourth grade.
Yeah.
It's just too much pressure. And my mom was supportive and mushy gushy and stuff, but that was a different kind of pressure because I found, remember in the olden days when moms would fill out questionnaires in magazines, whatever, it
Yeah.
wasn't Cosmo, but something like that, and it was like, what expectations or what do you see in the future for your children? And I mean, low elementary, maybe third grade. And I had to go ask her, Mom, what's postdoctoral? Like, that's what she saw for me. And in
Oh
a
my
way,
God.
that was encouraging, obviously. She really believed in me. And in another way, like, oh, kind of a lot.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, I definitely, and I'm the oldest. I grew up with just one brother, less than a year younger. But later in life, as the parents remarried, I now have 6 younger brothers and sisters. So I feel that definitely, birth order, firstborn thing, big time.
Yeah. Okay, so I think your story is really interesting. And again, I know you obviously better than I know some of the people I talk to that I know nothing about before I get on here and get to learn about them. I think the first marriage and separation is such a pivotal part of your life, and you jumped right into it, which I found awesome, because you talked about how you didn't get the support you needed and wanted to continue with your education. How did you break free of that relationship, and how did you know that you needed to make that decision? Like, walk me through that as much as you're comfortable. I don't want to pry,
yeah.
but it's
Sure.
just, yeah.
Reminded of a comedian who said, rationalizations are better than sex, because you can go a day without sex, but you can't go a day without a good rationalization. So I'm so willing to extend compassion, not only to others, but now again, as I get older, to myself. So the way I look back, I got married at age 23. And it was like a best friend from high school that I wasn't like super duper crazy in love with, but I was trying to make a logical decision. This person has these qualities and traits, and he's really crazy about me. And neither of us were particularly healthy. So the grace I give myself about it is when we know better, we do better. So I took those marriage vows so seriously, and I wanted to stick with it. And I remember our common loved one saying to me, "What are you doing in there?" And I said, when this ends, and I feel pretty certain it's going to end, I want to be able to know I tried everything. I tried so hard to make it work. I probably tried too hard, but I did grow, learn, go to therapy, go to self-help groups, 12-step stuff, you name it. And as one person changes, either the other one has to, or the relationship changes, or it's over. So I've gotten better with boundaries and asserting myself through the years. But one thing that I had no problem with was protecting my baby as mama bear. So this person was abusive, I feel comfortable in saying, to me. But the first time that it looked like it might be going that direction towards my little boy, I had the police escort him out of the home and our lives. And I cannot tell you how proud I am of myself about that. It was hard and scary and a struggle. And Garrett was little at that time. And of course, he doesn't understand. And I didn't want to be overly negative about his father. So I just said, we couldn't get along, and that wasn't best for you. That's what you tell a kid who's 7 or barely 8. And then as time went by, and I found the love of my life, my current hubby, Paul, he said, "Why don't you tell him the truth?" Because Garrett would say, like, "Mom, I know Dad wanted you to stay together," type of stuff, which did get me right here. But I knew it wasn't going to help him for me to get pulled into that tug of war. So I just said, as it's more appropriate, as you get older, you'll understand. So now, again, he's 24. And the extent of what I told him was, you can forgive someone and you can wish them well and choose not to be in relationship with them. I will always be thankful to your dad that he gave me you, but it is not healthy for me to be involved with him in any capacity. So made that exodus, and it was a struggle financially in every way, especially seeing the hurt it caused my child. But he has grown into a wonderful man, and I do believe a very large part of that is his stepdad, who is a tremendous father to him, taught him how to shave, taught him how to drive, taught him how to be a gentleman and to treat women. So, yeah, that was awesome. And it was, again, a necessary part of my growth and development to develop that backbone and go, there's a line and this is it. You're not going to do anything to harm my baby. Boop, done.
I think that's so hard. And I know a ton of women that have struggled with getting out of abusive relationships. And I lump myself into that category because my first love was super abusive, and I stayed with him for 6 years.
Wow.
And I should have left, all of this earlier, but I just didn't have the fortitude. I didn't have the self-confidence or the self-esteem or the knowledge or any of those things. Like, I was just, raised to believe that if you have sex with someone, you're supposed to stay with them. You're supposed to get married to them. My mom was a Baptist, my dad was a Catholic, and neither of them went to church, but it was very much instilled, like, that shouldn't happen before marriage. And if you have sex, like, that's supposed to be your person. And I was like, well, this fucking guy is mentally, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, but I love him and I'm supposed to stay with him. And thank God, I finally got out of that situation, because similar to you, I have this wonderful husband now that loves me to death and would never do anything
He
like
is
that.
the
And
best, I can say from firsthand observation.
yes, it's like night and day different. But I feel like so many women get into those situations where, for whatever reason, we are stuck, and it does take something significant before you get out. And thankfully, we were able to. I know a lot of people don't have that opportunity. But for you, was it always like would there have been any other way for you to get out of that relationship, or do you feel like it really had to come down to the child?
I hope I would have built up slowly, little by little, the understanding, the strength, whatever it took. But the old thing about boiling a frog, you just keep turning up that water. I wasn't aware of what was going on, and the two things that happened post separation that made me realize, wow, how did I get here? One was I was going back to school. So I had taken the GRE before, but I needed to retake it because it had been so long. And when I got the results back, I literally said to myself, wow, I'm smart. Somehow, I mean, I knew that, but somehow these messages of you're crazy, you're stupid, your family, whatever, had worn me down to, I literally had forgotten that. And that is amazing to me. As someone with a degree in psychology and an advanced degree in counseling, like, how does that happen? Which is why I don't have judgment for women that I feel like we are lucky ones. Yes, we're strong and we did stuff, but there's lots of strong people who try and just don't have the support or the whatever it is. So I can look back at myself and say, you were introspective, you were intelligent, you had people that loved you, and you kept these secrets and you put up with stuff you shouldn't have, and you don't know why. And so when I see that in our larger society, like, why did she stay? We need to reframe that as, why did he keep abusing her? If she's the one who's being oppressed, if she's the one who feels cut off from support, why are we putting it on her to fix it? So we stayed when we stayed because that's what we could do. And when we knew better, we did better, and we got out, and thank God. And I hope that serves as inspiration for other people. And if it doesn't nudge them to get out, I have nothing but love and compassion for them.
Yeah.
You probably know someone, I know someone, and you just, try to live a life that would make someone want to think, hey, there's hope. That's what it boils down to, is being a source of light for somebody else who's in a rough spot, and you might not know, because I kept those secrets. Oh, that was the second thing that happened. There were many rules in our relationship, and one was you're not allowed to let anyone borrow the carpet shampooer. So we are divorced. I own the house. All the contents in it are mine. And someone asked to borrow the carpet, and I felt this nervousness of like, that's a rule, you're not allowed. And went, what? Why am I still being controlled by this outer force that's now become internalized? I'm the boss of my life. I can take that carpet shampooer and run over it in the driveway if I want. And that was a beautiful day.
Yes.
Let me destroy a household product.
Oh my gosh, it does. It really is like a deep programming, because you guys were married for quite a while and you were together for quite a while.
Yeah, the better part of 2 decades. And so I will never stop being proud of myself for extricating myself from a difficult situation. And he also made a lot of money, and I chose a life of poverty for some amount of time because I knew to get the child out unscathed, he cared more about some things than others. So I wanted to have the minimal amount of damage done to me and to the little boy, and walking away from money facilitated that. And again, no regrets, because my life right now is so happy. We do sometimes worry. Like, my husband owns his own business. He does remodeling. And so you have to go out and hustle for each new job. And he's well loved in his area, but there's always the time of like, oh, nothing's on the schedule. And we still have bills coming in. And I said, you know what? We've always made it, and we always will. But I would so much rather have that than just that, dark, tense feeling of power and control and all that nonsense. Because now my life is full of light and love and support and kindness. And it's just every day a relief and a source of joy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. I'm so happy that you ended up in the situation you're in. When you decide, so talk to me about your transition from counseling, and maybe talk a little bit more about like you got your master's degree, you're doing counseling, that sort of thing. Talk a bit about that, and then the transition into flight attendant.
So the school where I went, they had just changed with the semester I started going. Like before, it had been a 2-year program and it went to 5. We had this wonderful accreditation, which was very impressive and stuff, but it was so many semesters of practicum and internship, and I got a wonderful education and I loved it. But in Texas, where I live, you choose a route. You can go the school counseling route if you're already a certified teacher, or the community, which is like be a regular psychotherapist. I knew that's what I wanted to do. But because I was already a certified teacher, they said, if you go that route, you can do either, which made more sense. So I allowed myself to be talked into that. But then the problem was those 3 years I spent in schools doing practicum internship instead of out in community. So then when it was time to get a job, I had not formed those connections, didn't have that network in place. And it happened to be a bad time in Texas where budgetary, you can't get rid of teachers, but maybe we can lessen the amount of librarians and counselors in schools. So I was getting a little panicked. I had student loans to pay and a little boy to support. And yeah, like I said, I needed health insurance. Initially, I foolishly thought, I can do both. I can be a flight attendant and manage to keep my certification license up with counseling. And because I've always commuted and I was not a spring chicken when I started, mid-40s, I think, I was exhausted. And there was no way I could barely do one job, much less 2. But I do have sort of in my back pocket that when I get tired or my body gives out doing this physicality, I can always go back to school, get stuff re-going and sit in a chair and listen to people, maybe adults this time. Not that I don't care about them, but they're so much less cute, the little ones. So yeah, originally I thought I would do both. And that was a foolish pipe dream. But again, I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. And to be able to, in this empty nest phase of life that we find ourselves in, to be able to go and have adventures with my hubby. If I were the kind of person to feel guilty about indulgent delights, I might. But instead, I just feel like, this is great. We went to Norway in February when it was 15 minutes of daylight per day.
Wow.
And we did dog mushing, and we did an off-road snow scooter up to a Russian settlement. I mean, just crazy adventures. And he's the kind of person that even when we were in lockdown during COVID, like we just got along because he's just easygoing and fun and nice. So to have that capability, I don't mind mucking around in the dark recesses of people's psyches and helping them. But it is a nice little break to just go have fun and travel.
You know that moment when you realize that you can't keep living the way that you've been living? You've probably heard several of my guests talk about that already. If that resonates with you and you're feeling like you're in that moment, you're in luck. I've created a 30-day program that's going to help you become unstuck, reconnect with your joy, reconnect with yourself, and reconnect with your values. We're going to work together to figure out your next step, your vision, and your path forward. This is an invitation for you to live the life of your dreams that truly lights you up. Visit 101waysout.com to get started. Yeah. I was talking to somebody a couple months back, and their big focus was that the purpose of life is joy. And I don't think we're taught that. Yeah, I think we're like, no. No, we're supposed to work. We're supposed to make money. We're whatever.
That's the waspy American way of thinking. And like with children, I remember hearing the world has enough smart children. We need good, nice, like all that. And I'm sure you feel it. You have a very smart child who's also good and nice. But, there's so much, I think, pressure on parents that then gets passed on to children. You got to succeed and you got to be smart and you got to have this outward success, as opposed to be a good person. And by the way, be happy and enjoy life. I remember Garrett as a little boy, like 4, watching the trash man jump off the back of the truck and grab stuff and jump back on. He said, "Oh, Mommy, that's what I want to do when I grow up." And I said, you can do whatever you want, but I just hope you don't want to be in the military or police, because I would worry about you. And he's not. He's a musician. So, but yeah, I thought it's really true. The question they ask about, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And one of the questions I read recently, do you want to be successful or do you want to be happy? I think for some people, they're not happy without success, and that's fine. That's valid. And I'm just so happy that I'm not that type A overachiever anymore that I used to be, that says
Yeah.
it's fine to enjoy life, pay your bills. Yeah, our house needs to be fixed up and it'll still be there in years when we have nothing better to do. But in the meantime, we're having fun and living life. And if someone judges me for that, it's not going to be me.
I love
It's not
that.
going to be me is all I can say.
How has your definition changed, like your priority changed between happiness and success over time?
Okay, so I think a big part of it is that the former spouse that I had has achieved powerful positions in a major, I'll just say Microsoft,
Yeah.
and makes a ton of money. And I saw firsthand that doesn't bring happiness. It just doesn't. I mean, yes, if you're struggling to feed your child, that's going to cause you to have some sadness. But if you have enough and you can mindfully practice being happy with enough, you cut so much frustration and needless worry out of your life. So I don't know. I think back to the lifestyle that I once had, that going to Disney World meant staying at the top tier place where the giraffes are grazing outside your window and all that. And it was awesome. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. But I don't need that to be happy. I don't need to impress people with my job. Like, I remember saying to people, I'm a special ed teacher, and you get that kind of like, oh, you saint, or, oh, I counsel children in need. Oh, and I guess I'll own it. At one time, I needed that validation from outside to know that I was a good person. And ironically, now that I'm doing less to help myself, and kind of in a stage of life where I'm just enjoying and having fun, I feel so much more certain I am a good person. And if others see that, great. And if they don't, also great, because I cannot put energy into impressing anybody but myself. My best friend in college, roommate, we were both going to be counselors together. She went on and did it right away and has since moved on. I made me a high burnout field, but she's now an amazing photographer. But I told her that I wanted to go back to school. I liked the idea being a doctor. And she responded to me like, oh, I'm surprised. I never thought you were one to want to impress others with what outward. And I had to really reflect upon that. Like, is that true? Am I trying to impress people? And then I said, no, I want to impress myself. I don't care what other people think. I want that. Just like, aren't you sad you wasted your education? No, I know I earned that master's. I earned every minute of it. And I'm so proud of it. And I practice the discipline of not analyzing people who haven't asked me to. That's none of my business. But to achieve something feels good. To have people recognize that feels good, but it's not something I need. I need joy. I need peace. I need happiness. I need to be content with what I have instead of always striving for more. And I think that's not necessarily the American way.
No, it's not, but it would be great if it were. I think we'd all be a lot happier. And I think also the job that you have now, because I was a flight attendant for all of like a month, but I remember very strongly the feeling of satisfaction that I got from that job. And it was just it was like, I didn't have to worry about what I wore every day. I didn't have to worry about where I was going. I was all taken care of. I just got in the plane. I did my job. And when people left the plane, they were so nice. They were so grateful. I got so much positive feedback for that short flight I did. And I was just like, why would I want to do something other than this? Like, it's
clock
so
in,
rewarding.
clock out, bye-bye. And then you go on your layover and have fun or travel on your days off. I have people say to me kind of often like, oh, that's my dream job. And I almost for a minute feel guilty because it wasn't mine. Obviously, I kind of fell into it. I did not know how much the odds were against getting hired when I went to that interview. And they say the best interview you give is for the job you don't really want. Like, I wanted it, but I wasn't all worked up. And so I think my ignorance read as confidence. Hey, what's up, fellas? But
like, oh, she's easygoing. She's
yeah,
great.
I'm not nervous about this at all. And then you find out later, the minuscule amount of people that apply that get hired. And I was like, whoa, sure glad I skated in. I better keep this job for a while. I'm not going to rule out another change, but for right now, I don't want one. I'm happy where I am. I want to keep this going for a while. And I don't want to retire until it reaches that point where I flew with a lady recently who I want to say was in her 80s. And she looked fantastic, but she probably shouldn't have been working anymore because she wasn't really at the top of her game. But I thought,
Yeah.
wow, how great that she loves her job that much. And here she still is, you know? When I'm 80,
Yeah.
I might be lazy and ready to just sit at home. We'll see. See what happens then.
But it's great to have a job that you feel that way about. That you're like, maybe when I'm 80, I'll still do this.
Yeah. I mean, we both know how David feels about it. He's like, they'll have to cart him off against his will.
Exactly. Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, so I normally ask about like income changes and everything else. So let's just cover like life
Well,
changes.
I will say
Yeah.
this. You don't make a lot as a new flight attendant. And I do recall having the conversation with my current hubby. Okay, I can get a job working in a school for this amount of money, or I can work as a flight attendant for 30,000 less a year. And I remember him saying, well, you know, you could spend that extra money on travel. And I said, but you wouldn't. Nobody would spend that significant a chunk. And you wouldn't necessarily have as much time off to make it happen and stuff. And so I remember it was almost like a whimsical flip of the coin of, well, we'll try and see. And now we're both very convinced that it was the right decision. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty serious to go, I could make more money and I'm not going to. And
Yeah.
I was, because I live in San Antonio, I was based in Dallas for 8 years, a long time. And
Yeah.
a friend wanted me to move to New York to be based, and I was afraid. I'm not great with directions, and there's 3 bases there you have to cover. And I'm not a big city girl. And so I wasted time being scared. And something happened in my life. I don't know if it was the loss of my parents, but something happened where I thought, when you begin to get old, you can either be afraid and like stay at home all the time, or you can be that crazy grandma that's like jumping out of planes and stuff. I just want to be a little closer to that end. So I thought, I cannot right now, when I'm still young and vigorous, start letting fear contain me. So even though I'm scared to death to transfer and be based in New York, I'm going to do it. And best decision ever, because now I get to work flights with my best friend, and now I get to do some international stuff here and there. And by no means do I feel like a New Yorker, but sometimes I try it on and pretend when I'm there, like, hey, I work in New York. I'm big time. But yeah, I mean, it's just everything about the job is so much better since I did that. And I very easily could have not done it because I was worried about it's more expensive, to travel there or to eat there or to stay there or whatever. And so many times when it was a choice between, I guess it boils down to doing what might make me happy or what might make me more well remunerated, I went with what was going to make me happy. And that has always worked so far. Let me knock on something. I haven't, like I said, I won't regret. I don't regret staying in Dallas as long as I did, because I feel like the time when I moved to New York was the right time. I was off reserve, which, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, when you're a flight attendant, you can have a schedule where you know in advance, or you can have no idea where they're going to send you when, and what airplane and what position. And it's just a little hard to live your life that way. So covering 3 bases in New York, I was scared, and then got there and went, I'm not on reserve here anymore, whereas I would have been in Dallas forever. So this was so the right decision to make. And this is a bit of a weird story, but it's also just the truth of how decisions happen in my life. I was driving to be on reserve when I was still based in Dallas, and we don't have a lot of ice in Texas. And so your cars aren't equipped for that, and your highway department isn't equipped. So an unexpected ice storm came up, and I called my hubby, born and raised in Chicago. What do? I don't know how to drive on ice. He said, go slow, keep both hands on the wheel. Well, that doesn't help when you hit black ice. So it is pre-dawn darkness, and I'm in, thank God, his truck, not my VW Beetle. I begin spinning on this bridge. I hit one side, spin, hit the other side. And it was exactly like a movie where they zoom in really close. I could see things flying around the cab of the truck. And I had this very calm, very logical discussion with myself. Okay, I'm about to die. Garrett will be okay. He's going to graduate high school or college soon. Paul will be a little disappointed. We're supposed to do this cruise for our anniversary, but he'll be okay. I'm going to hit the edge of this bridge. I'm going to flip over. It's going to hurt a lot, but not for long, because I'll probably die immediately. I mean, it was that calm. It was that clear. So spin, crunch. And I'm like, wait a second. I think I'm still alive. Now, I don't want to get out. I'm now on the wrong side of the highway, in the dark, on the ice. If I can't drive, I definitely can't walk. So my first call was 911, come get me. My second call was American Airlines, I'm not going to make it. And when it was all said and done, the highway, what do they call them? State trooper came and said, yeah, this is why we call this the death tollway. And I said, y'all should put that on a sign. I would have taken a different route. But he said, I'll bring your purse to you in the ER because everything was just thrown all around. And as I'm there, the nurse says, yeah, he can't come. There's been 3 more wrecks. He's going to mail you your stuff. I'm like, I live in San Antonio. That truck was full of stuff. I don't have anything except my phone, not a charger, not a purse, nothing. So I'm calling around trying to figure out where they towed my vehicle. What happened with all of this was I realized that to my employer, I was a number, a replaceable number. And I'm not going to kill myself to get to work. And that was when I said, yeah, it's time for a change. Let me go to New York. I went to the hospital and they really thought there would be a lot wrong with me. And I remember the ER doc taking off the neck thing and it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. I said, you sound disappointed. He said, it would have been more exciting. You know, he thought I'd broken my sternum and ruptured internal stuff. And I thought, there's a reason for this. All I had was a big nasty bruise where the seatbelt got me. But other than that, I was fine. And I said, you know, there's something here that says, A, I'm not taking crap anymore. B, I'm living every moment like it might be my last. And C, drown the people you love with love. Because you never know. You never know when their last day is going to happen or when yours is. So the first thing I did when I got to my little motel in Tyler was call my best friend David and say, hey, listen, this wonderful thing happened. I have totaled Paul's truck and I'm injured and I'm in this. And he said, oh, honey, you're in shock. You're going to be upset when it all sinks in. I said, no, I'm really not. And 2 years later, I've never felt sadness about that. I feel like that was such a great thing that happened. Paul got a new truck and I made changes and I don't want to take crap from a job, from people, from passengers, from family, from anybody. Not out of a sense of meanness, anger, just out of a sense of, hey, life is too sweet to let anybody ruin a day of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that is amazing, Mary. That is an amazing story. And I never heard the details of that. Like, I remember that there was an accident. I remember David telling me that you were in shock. And I remember that part of it. That's amazing. That clarity that you had, too. That's incredible.
And now I feel like I know what I'm going to feel like when I know I'm going to die. And it wasn't panic and it wasn't sadness. It was peace. I was like, oh gosh, I hope these people are okay. I'm ready. And now I'm living on borrowed years. Here I am, still kicking somehow.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Do you have a plan or ultimate vision for what you want your life to look like?
I feel like the correct answer should be yes, and the true answer is no. I have given myself fully to the idea of letting the river take me where it will. Now, that doesn't mean I don't try to prepare for stuff. You know, we're saving for retirement and we're looking at a little place in the mountains in New Mexico where it's not so darn hot in the summers. But everything that happens, I always feel like, and people think I'm crazy when I answer this way, but the lizard alien overlords could take over tomorrow. So I'm not going to invest too much in plans. I'm going to do the best I can with what I have right now, hope for the best for the future, but, not to be too much of a downer. But I thought 9/11 would be the defining event of my generation. Then COVID came along like, wow, this changed everything forever. Didn't see that coming. And where we are currently and possibly the demise of our democracy, did not see that coming. And it is easy to get overwhelmed and feel pessimistic. And I read one perspective that said, the absolute best thing you can do in the face of whatever, fill in the blank, is refuse to be downtrodden. I think about that oppressive marriage where I told myself, all you need is to get up one more time than you're pushed down. All you need is to never let that tiny little spark of whatever, rebellion, desire to live, whatever it is, not get snuffed out. So no matter what is presented, I just refuse to let the circumstances get me down. Yeah, I'll have my moments of crying and being sad, and then I get back up and say, what are we going to do? So I truly don't have a plan. I'm kind of going to work as long as I can and travel as long as I can and enjoy as much as I can and look maybe towards some more education, or shoot, it'd be great if somebody won the lottery and neither of us had to work, but I really don't know. And I'm weirdly okay with that. Like David telling me, you're in shock, you'll be upset later. No, I'm just trying to choose peace and calm over what I used to have, which was worry and perfectionism and overachieving and all that jazz.
That's amazing.
And all without substances. Woo!
Yeah. So inspiring. I mean,
Thank you.
seriously, so
You're very
inspiring. And
kind.
no, it's true. I'm like listening to you. I'm like, I could listen to you talk for hours. I think it's fantastic. I love your perspective. I love how you've managed to kind of navigate all of these different situations and like these difficulties and come out on the other side with, figuring out your next steps and kind of moving in the direction that brings you happiness. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I really hope, and I think a lot of people are going to hear what you have to say and be like, I didn't see things that way. I can try to adopt, at least start a little bit of adopting what Mary is saying and just see how my
I
life
think
changes for the better.
a lot of stuff is a choice. It's like
Yeah.
one thing I learned in my psychological training. It's not what happens that determines how you feel. It's how you interpret, you're meeting a friend for lunch. That friend is late. If you think,
Yeah.
I knew she didn't care as much about me as I cared about her, you're angry. If you think, oh my
Yeah.
God, she must have gotten in a wreck, you're scared. If you think, wow, something must have happened, I can't wait to hear what the story is, then you're neutral. So I try to choose to, in whatever situation, believe the best of people or think the most positively about the circumstances, because it's a mindfulness, discipline, practice of like, yeah, I do go down rabbit holes sometimes, but when I can choose to see the positive in something or make something positive out of it, if I can manage to do that, I'm winning. And this is my husband currently will say like, oh, you're too nice. You let people, whatever. And I said, look, if someone's being mean to me, they want to upset me. So by refusing to be upset, I've already won. I don't need to be nastier than they are, louder, meaner, stronger, any of that. If I don't get flapped, I'm unflappable and they've got nowhere to go. And I had a thing with a passenger once and someone said, don't let it ruin your New Year's Eve. I said, it's not ruining my 5 minutes. I don't have enough time to spend with the people I love. I'm not auditioning new friends. If these people don't like me, my life continues exactly. Because whatever their problem is, it's usually not me. They don't even know me.
Wow.
I try to access the compassion for whatever they're going through that's making them behave the way they are and move on.
So maybe let me ask you, can you share like any advice when we get into those moments when something does like get into our heads that just is, we know it's a choice. I think a lot of us know, but so effing hard to get out of that. How do you do it?
I'll tell you an example from my life. People talk about forgiveness. It's not for the other person. It's for you. And not forgiving is like drinking a poison and hoping your enemy will die. Well, yeah, we all know that. But how? I picture myself being at Hogwarts and them saying, okay, make that broom rise up and go. Like, I can't. Well, one person finally told me how. And they said, okay, this person that you're struggling to not bear a grudge against, I don't remember the amount of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, every day for 2 weeks, pray for that person to have every positive thing you want for yourself. And I will go ahead and divulge, it's at the time was my future ex-spouse. Anyway, I spent that time because he was really making my life miserable. I want peace, he wants peace. I want love, he wants love. And he did not have any idea I was doing this. And I don't know how I would have transmitted any difference in what I was doing. But after that amount of time, things did get better. And I thought, okay, so this is what we all need. Not big, beautiful ideas that you can put on a t-shirt, but a how-to. So this is, spoiler alert, I did a lot of therapy, But one thing my therapist told me in terms of dealing with this particular toxic person or toxic people in general is, when they say something to you, don't hear the words. Hear blah, 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 I want to hurt you. Blah, 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 I need to win. And I can adapt that into my life. But, an angry passenger on the plane, it's not about me, but blah, 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 I'm angry. Blah, 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 I'm frustrated. Blah, 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 I want. And so I can't really solve their problems, but I can sincerely identify with the feeling, because I wouldn't say this to them, but guess what? I deal with this all the time too. Delayed flights and mechanicals, and yes, it sucks, and I feel you, man. But instead, I just say, oh, I am so sorry. I wish I could do something more to help you, because I can't. But if you do, identify with that. So anybody that, and I don't always manage it, sometimes people get under my skin, but anybody that wants to mix it up with me, if I cannot hear their words or the particulars of the situation, but just understand where they're coming from, hurt, anger, or even if it's just a desire to win, I don't care if you win or not, so I guess you win, and I drop the rope and walk away. But it's just something that takes practice. And talking to my hubby this morning, who's worried about the next, remodeling job coming up, I said, you can choose to mull this over all day, or you can choose to think positively and believe something will come along. And it may not change the outcome, but you've either had a miserable day or an okay day. So yeah, I think it's just like a good relationship, or just like succeeding in your job, or just like training for a marathon. You have to grind it out. You have to continually do the work, remaining positive, of choosing joy, of breaking the rules you don't even realize are there, put in place by patriarchy or our culture or whatever, and say, wait a second, why am I doing this? I don't have to do this. And I don't think there's a shortcut. I think being 56 helps. And so I'll try to give like a little nugget of life help to my favorite niece who's 20. Like, hey, listen, man, let me tell you a secret.
Aww.
No one cares. When you're issuing an apology, they don't care about your reasons or your situation or anything. All they care about is, I recognize I did something to harm you. I feel badly about that. I won't do it again, and I want to make it up. That is it. And if you issue an apology like that, I can't imagine anybody who wouldn't forgive. And I told my son, if you're not happy in a relationship, don't stay in that relationship, but also don't spring it on somebody. Say, look, I'm not happy, and if it doesn't get better in X amount of time, I think we're going to have to go our separate ways. And he's so kind-hearted. He did not want to do that, but he took that approach with his most recent relationship, and he felt this awesome sense of relief. And so I thought, yeah, you can't constantly preach at younger people, but you can give them your best little nugget. Whoop, there it is. So my best little nugget for the young people out there trying to find a way out is, don't let fear stop you. It's always going to be there. And courage isn't the lack of fear. It's being afraid and still doing whatever it is. And no regrets here.
So that, I think, is like a great segue into this question that I have, which is, if there's somebody that you're talking to that really wants to do something different with their life, wants to change their life, how do you help them figure out what to do with it? What do you tell them to do?
That's tough. That hits home because as I reference my son, who has this degree in a kind of a niche area, and he wants to work in music, but then there's the reality of trying to pay bills in Austin, Texas. So I told him, the benefit of my experience is, like they say, we plan, God laughs. I went to school for counseling. I'm not doing that. My hubby has a degree in something totally unrelated. He's not doing that. I said, you went to school, you've had the experiences you've had, and you don't know what one person you're going to meet or what one experience is going to open something up, but you just remain open to the opportunity and don't get, I don't know if complacent is the right word, but I almost feel in the grind of trying to work his 4 jobs and pay all his bills, like he's letting his enthusiasm be dampened. And you have to, whatever that fire is, whatever that spark is, you don't have to wake up at 4 every morning and try to write the great American novel and run a marathon or whatever. Just have a little bit of something that says, yeah, I'm tired right now because I'm working all these jobs to try to pay my bills, but I'm remaining open that miracle is going to happen for me. The way that my life is supposed to go is going to happen when it's supposed to happen. And that's really hard to hold on to that. Like, I imagine somebody who has a lifestyle, has bills to pay, has expectations, and I don't want to be in this. Oh, you know what? It just occurred to me. My hubby was a very successful salesman. He worked in medical supply sales and made a lot of money, and he hated it. He's an introvert. So he was good at it, successful, and he was doing tiling stuff on the side, which he liked. And I said, if you hate your job, maybe don't do that job anymore. Take a chance and go off on your own. And it could have been a disaster. Most small businesses do go under, right? But it didn't. And he's happy now. And now that I think of it, my first husband was a civil engineer and hated it and wanted to do computer stuff, and then became very successful at Microsoft because I guess I'm the kind of friend you want to invite to go out to eat if you hope. You ask, should I order dessert? And they say, absolutely. So if somebody tells me they're not happy in their job, their life, their relationship, should I change? Absolutely. So there's my advice. Get a yes man in your corner that whatever you want to do will encourage you, and not just, go for it, grind it out. Keep positive, keep open to the things that will happen. Yes, life will wear you down and you'll feel less than optimistic at times, but just keep plugging at it. My son is not an ambitious, competitive type, but he did get his black belt in Taekwondo when he was about 8 or 10. And that inspired me because he was not like a killer instinct, but what he did was just slowly plug away, day after day, week after week, year after year, and he got there. And there are people that get there from, sheer willpower, get there faster, stronger, harder. And then there's the Garretts that just plug away at it. And not one isn't more valid than the other, I'm definitely just make your little baby steps and you'll get there eventually. I think it's great when people can leap forward. But if you can do one thing to make a little change, it's so much more attainable than like, I'm going to change everything overnight. And then somehow you fail because that's not realistic.
Yeah. That's great advice and awesome stories too. Thank you so much, Mary. I love it. What's the most liberating decision that you've made in your life in the last, let's just say the last 10 years, because you are living a very different life now than you were before. So what's the most liberating thing you're able to do now that you could have never done before?
I'm trying not to filter myself and to keep it really honest, because there have been a lot of liberating things, but I think truly the most is relieving myself of the responsibility in terms of family. People always use the analogy of the flight attendant put on your oxygen mask first.
Yeah.
I care so much about various members of my family. And if there were an infinite amount of Mary that could help and support and be there, I would do that. But here in the real world, I am a limited quantity, and I put myself and my hubby first. And Garrett, even though he's a grown man off on his own, he's still a close second. And so if I have time, energy, resources, anything left over that, yes, I will be the best sister, auntie, daughter, whatever I can be. But a lot of times there isn't anything left over. And I have decided to tell myself, that's just good enough. Yeah. Because there were times when I was grinding it out and being the super sister or whatever. And I'll say, for example, we have so many nephews in my family, hardly a niece to be found, but I was the auntie that did all the fun stuff. And now I'm just a little lazy and tired and I just don't want to. And you know what? My sister, who's 19 years younger, has stepped right up and she's super Kimmy. And I'm like, great. I'm so happy to hand the baton over. And it doesn't mean I love anybody any less. And I refuse to feel guilty, because if I ever start to feel guilty, I tell myself, my number one job is to take care of myself and my husband. And I'm killing it there.
Yeah.
So if I'm a little slacking in some other areas, hopefully they understand. And again, if they don't, I've given myself that get out of jail free card of like, I got to protect my mental health. Yeah. I've got to keep my little train chugging along. And it would be great if I was the kind of person that had more energy, time, organization, what have you, but I don't. So here we are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, oh gosh, I was just having a conversation with a mentor that I've talked to for it's been over a year. I don't think it's been a year and a half now that he and I have been having conversations. And he is very much the type of person that, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, regardless of, belief systems, et cetera, if they're family, you should keep them in your life. And I disagree with that. That is not how I have approached my life. And he gets so frustrated and he just doesn't understand it. He's like, but your parents, but this and that. I'm like, I understand. We are different people and we make different choices. And I have to protect my own energy, my own mental health, my ability to focus and have a beautiful, positive life that I want to have. And so that does mean that in my life, I have certain people and I don't have other people. And just because we're biologically related doesn't mean that that person's in my life.
So healthy.
Yeah.
So healthy. There are things like I have little mantras for different situations. And a lot of times I won't say them to the other person because my rule about whether or not to say something is, do I have a reasonable belief that something positive is going to come of this? And a lot of times it's not, like they're not going to change or whatever. But sometimes the only positive that will come of it is, I feel glad that I spoke up. But a lot of times I don't need to say it to another person, but I have stuff in my back pocket for stuff to say at that time. So if I were you having that conversation with that person, what I probably wouldn't say to him, but I would say to myself about him is, I'm so happy for you that you've had that kind of life, that you have that kind of family. It's lovely that you haven't ever felt the need to disconnect with love or to distance yourself from situations that are not healthy. I wish more people had that. And over here for me, we're going to continue. Like I told Garrett, it's not that you're unforgiving. It's not that you're unloving. It's that you can choose with whom to spend your time, on whom to extend your emotions and your availability and whatever. And I'm going to choose the healthiest ones that give my heart solace, not continue pouring out, which younger Mary might have been tempted to do. So yeah, it would be great if our sisters and our parents and our everybody were healthy and supportive, and sometimes they're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you also nailed it earlier when you were talking about being a perfectionist and a people pleaser and all of those things. And you've changed a ton of that in your life, and you're in a much better place now because you've changed.
Slowly.
I think that's powerful. I think that's an interesting thing too, because I am not the most patient person, never have been, and ever. It's gotten better ish over the years. But I'm definitely like this kind of person that's like, I want to see this change now. I want this to happen now. But to your point, like, it is not fast. Like this, like, it's a whole journey. And I think there are some people that maybe things do change more quickly, or they do progress more quickly. But for me, it's definitely been a journey over the course of my life, So hearing you say that actually makes me feel a lot better.
Good. I'm glad. I had a pastor say to me one time, all comparison begins with a lack of gratitude. And I turned that over and over in my mind over a long period of time, trying to find an exception where that wasn't true. And I thought, how much time have I wasted comparing myself to other people? And how much happier could I have been if I just tried to be the best me I could be, instead of, why don't I have the energy of that person, or the organization of that person, or the driving ambition of that person? They probably don't have the compassion that I do for being an underachiever. And if I had had the perfect idyllic childhood of my current husband, maybe I wouldn't have the depth of understanding of situations. So, like I said, there's an upside to everything, and this slow change that has happened, I feel, is more entrenched than if I were able to somehow do a quick flip, that it could quick flip again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point in your life, what is lighting you up?
I love my husband. I love my home. I love my job. I love my son. I love my friends. I love my life. And there are down days and down circumstances. And I can worry, like anybody can. But if I force my focus over to love, it just always wins. It just always wins.
That's fantastic. For folks to find out more about you or follow your journey, do you have a presence anywhere?
Am I Slugbug Mary on Instagram? I'm Slugbug Mary on Instagram, and Mary Sinclair Kowalski on Facebook.
Awesome. Mary, thank you so much for taking the time to allow me to interview you and share your story. It's
truly
so
my
awesome.
honor and pleasure. Thank you so much. It was a lovely, uplifting chat with you.
Hi, Vanessa, and anyone else. Quick update on us. Garrett is still searching for his dream job in Austin, which is difficult to afford, as you may imagine. He's recently considered things like going back to school, master's degree. He's talked about getting a job not in the music industry, which I think could be great because he can go back to creating music with friends on the weekends for fun and for the love of it, rather than having any sort of financial pressure attached. Hubby Paul was going through a bit of a drought with customers for the home remodeling business, and that was very concerning for him, of course, but it worked out great for me because normally our house is at the bottom of the list to be worked on, and since he had a little extra time, we've been doing home renovations here, which is amazing and a little stressful and super cool. For my work life, let's see, there's rising fuel costs, there's bad weather, there's political yuckiness, so it can be rough. I still have no regrets about anything. I still love my job. I love my family. I'm very grateful for the life I have. And mainly I'm thankful that I found within myself the courage to make that change, because it would have been very easy to be stuck. Old patterns, old relationships, old, safe bets maybe. But I took a plunge, and now we get to do amazing things. Like we just spent a week in the countryside in Portugal, about an hour outside of Lisbon. We stayed in an Airbnb that was a tiny home created from a shipping container. Nothing but me and Paul and a view of the mountains and the ocean and the sound of frogs, and so restorative for the soul. And that was followed up by a week in Paris. Thank you, Uncle Sandy and Aunt Nancy. Totally different vibe, obviously, but equally wonderful. We're going to go spend some time with family on the beach in the Outer Banks at Christmas time. And beyond that, we don't know where our next adventure will take us, but it's good to be able to spontaneously experience so many amazing places and people that our world has to offer. I was looking through photos to send, and I found one of me standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking the Grand Canyon. And I thought, I remember what that felt like that day. And I remember a time when I was afraid to jump off of the side of a mountain or hill or something on a rope swing into some water. And every time I've been faced with that ability to do something new and scary that I wasn't sure I could do, and I did it, it's an indescribable feeling, like nothing else in the world, to be afraid and to take that plunge anyway. So I told Garrett, I'm praying for a miracle for him to get a job worthy of him, because he's such an amazing guy, a wonderful, sweet heart, so smart, so talented, so cool. How could a guy like that not have an incredible career of some sort? I know that Paul is an artist in tile, and that he's always going to do well. There'll be challenges, there'll be rough times, but overall, he's going to be successful. And I don't know what my job is going to look like in the future, but I know I'm happy, grateful for where I am, and it's nice to just choose faith over fear. So I wish peace and contentment and gratitude to the rest of the world too. Take care and be kind to each other.
This has been 101 Ways Out. I so appreciate you taking your valuable time and spending it with me. I hope something in this episode made you feel seen, understood, and inspired. If you're looking for support taking the next step in your life, visit 101waysout.com and check out our 30-day program. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on all of your favorite podcast platforms and follow our social media. Spread the word. I look forward to seeing you next week and continuing to explore what lights you up.